Fight Mike here. Today we're going to be discussing Alex Volkanovski's future matchups. As we've seen over the last 12 months or so, the featherweight division has had a bit of the changing of the guard. Old contenders like Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar, and others are nearing the end of their careers, and we're getting some good new up-and-comers that could be good matchups for Volk in the future. I just wanted to go through all the possible matchups for the future and rank them in terms of the least difficult to the most difficult fighters. We'll start off with the least difficult. Sadly, again, this is probably the next matchup, but I would say it is Yair Rodriguez. I really do pray that this is not the next fight for Volk, but I still think that he would probably win this quicker than he did the first fight that they had. I reckon it would be a round 2 TKO ground and pound for Volk. They fought before, and Volk was able to get the better of him in all of the grappling exchanges, and most of the striking exchanges were very razor close. And when the two fought, you would think that the slick, fast kicker specialist of Yair Rodriguez would be the faster fighter of the two, but Volk was much, much faster on the feet, especially in the hands and the leg kicks when they first fought. Even though Volk looked a little bit slower against Diego Lopes, he probably is still marginally faster than Yair. And really, what this fight comes down to is that Yair has made basically no improvements on his takedown defense in his last few fights. If you saw the fight against Patricio Pitbull, who's a 37-year-old, never been in the UFC, not an amazing fighter, he was taken down at will by Patricio Pitbull. He was taken down by Brian Ortega and subbed. And Volk has already ground and pound TKO'd him in his 3 fights ago or so. So we've seen in the last few, even though we've seen a glaring weakness throughout the entirety of Yair's career, he hasn't fixed that hole. If you remember years and years ago, Frankie Edgar was able to TKO Yair Rodriguez on the ground, and I just don't think he's made the reasonable adjustments to actually beat Volk on the ground. And the thing is that with his body style and his fight style, with all the crazy kicks, he's usually on one leg or in a crazy weird position where it's much easier to take Yair down than it would be someone like Max, who has a similar stature to Yair, but he's a lot more set in his stance, he's a lot more balanced, he's not throwing cartwheel kicks, so he's a lot harder to take down and hold down. And the other thing is that Yair always tries to play jiu-jitsu when you get on the ground with him. He doesn't assume that you can just beat the shit out of him and ground and pound TKO him. He always thinks that he's going to get the Josh Emmett type triangle that he will never pull off. He only will pull it off against these lower level opponents. So Volk will be able to hover max, beat him up on the ground, pound his head into the canvas, and I think that the ground and pound of a guy like Volk, who's just so dense and he's good at hovering over his opponent when he's on the ground. One thing that does pose well for Yair, I could see him fluking a head kick. We've seen that Volk does defend head kicks with one hand very often, and we have seen that that's Volk's glaring weakness in his fight style. But I just don't see. I see Volk patching up his issues more than I see Yair patching up his issues. Moving on to the next easiest matchup, we've got Lerone Murphy. I think that Lerone would probably get dominated in a decision to Volk. I think Volk would 49-46 Lerone Murphy. I think that's because Lerone's style just plays directly into Volk's strengths. He likes to throw 1 to 2 shot combinations, lots of kicks to the legs and body. And although Volk is very short, he's a much better fighter at range. He's very quick, he's very active at range. He likes to crash in randomly and will throw a 3-4 punch combination ending with a kick. And we've seen time and time again that Volk can out-jab the taller opponent and out-leg kick the taller and longer opponent. I think for one round only, Lerone Murphy's body kicks and his 2-punch combinations might give Volk a couple of issues, and then Volk will be able to see Lerone's patterns and just outpoint him really, really easily. And the thing is that Lerone's naturally a point fighter, but he's sort of like Leon Edwards, where he's trying to defeat you with feints. He's trying to break you down by feinting at range with you. And unless you're Colby Covington, that does not work. Volk is not going to get feinted at range against Lerone. He's going to be able to out-feint Lerone even. And I know I'm just talking about the feints right now, but Lerone literally will throw a jab and then a kick to the body, whereas Volk will throw 3 jabs in a row, a leg kick, he'll jump out of range, and then jump back in with the straight right. he's just so much more active than Lerone. And Lerone's not a heavy wrestler, so it's like every aspect of this fight, every place that this fight could take place, Volk is the stronger and better opponent. And honestly, I think that Volk would be able to 3-1 his strikes once he gets to the groove. It would be like one body kick or 2 body kicks a minute from Lerone compared to like 5 jabs, 2 right hands, 2 leg kicks, a jab to the body from Volk. Like, I just think Volk will be the much more active fighter. And Lerone Murphy, you'll see in all of his fights, especially like the Dan Ige fight, he was leaving a lot to the judges, and the lack of powerful output is not going to phase Volk. If you remember a lot of Lerone Murphy's fights, they're super close and down to the wire, and you just can't do that with a guy like Volk, who is able to just 3-1 your strikes consistently. He's such an active fighter that it's so difficult to do that to him. I think that Volk would probably be able to hurt Lerone. We've seen Lerone get hurt many, many times throughout his career. And Volk is just going to be able to shoot for the takedowns, make Lerone think too much, hold him against the cage. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be faster. I just don't see where the advantages for Lerone come in here. The only thing I would say is that I think he's probably got a slightly better chin at this point in his career. But even then, these guys are the same age. We're not looking at Lerone like he's a prospect. He's literally 47 years old. Moving on, though, we've got the next hardest matchup for Volk. I think it's going to be Movsar Evloev. I hope this fight's next, to be honest. Like, I really think that Evloev definitely deserves this fight. And stylistically, I think that this is a decent fight for Volk. I think that we would all love to see him crack Evloev's win streak as well. I think it's a very close fight. I think Evloev is very well-rounded. He's got underrated boxing, very good kicks. His positional grappling is next to none. And the thing is about this fight is that I just think that Volk does really well against guys who choose to wrestle with him. Like an Islam Makhachev in their first fight. Even though Islam was able to come out on top, I still think that Volk did a very impressive fight. Put up an impressive performance against him. And I think Movsar has got a lot worse striking than Islam Makhachev. And I also think that on the ground, Movsar might be as good positionally as Islam is, but he's not as good of a finisher on the ground. So Volk's not going to have to be too worried about the scrambles. He'll just be able to freely scramble, knowing that he's not going to get finished on the ground. And we know that he's such a stocky and short guy that it's just going to be so difficult for him to even end up on the ground. Volk is very strong in the clinch. He's got really good cardio, super fast, got really good fight IQ. His experience is going to carry him through it. And I think the biggest difference in this fight is that Movsar usually gets the wins by winning the smaller moments of this fight, of each fight. If you remember the fight against Aljamain Sterling, he wasn't necessarily winning the grappling positions, but when he was in those positions, he was throwing pitter-patter shots and just outlanding Aljo in that fight. Whereas if you watch Volk fight in any single fight across his entire career, regional or not, he never gives up positions. He will never give up on his cardio, and he'll try to outlast you at every point in the fight. I think Evloev is a bit underrated on the feet, but I just don't think he's got the power to KO Volk stiff, and I think you have to if you want to beat Volk. And honestly, I think Volk will probably lose one of the earlier rounds and then make it maybe like a third or fourth round close, trying to conserve his energy. But at least for 3 of those rounds, he's going to be out-jabbing him, out-legging, kicking him. He'll defend most of the takedowns. And where Movsar usually wants to stall the fight and get a little bit of damage off, Volk is not going to let it happen. And he will be able to win a close-ish decision where the commentators, if it's DC and Dominic Cruz or something, they'll pretend that Movsar could have won. But anyone with eyes will think that Volk easily outpointed him in the fight. I think it would be like a 49-46 on one scorecard and then 48-47 on the other two. Being a decently close fight, but I think that Volk would just outclass him in most aspects of the fight. Moving on to the most difficult stylistic matchup, and the only featherweight I see has like a decent chance of beating Alexander Volkanovski, I think it would be Gene Silva. Stylistically, this is very difficult for Volk. We haven't seen anyone with the same style of Gene Silva fight Volk throughout his entire career. I could see this fight looking a little bit like the Diego Lopes fight, where Volk gets hurt multiple times but doesn't get finished and goes out on a W. But this is a really 50-50 matchup for me, because I think the difference between Diego Lopes and Gene Silva is that Diego loves to come forward with a bit of a blockhead, gets hit a little bit, but he lands some good shots moving forward, tries to catch you as you're backing up. Whereas Gene Silva will try to catch you in the middle of a combination and try to put you out instantly. So Volk, a guy who's defensively pretty sound, who is able to evade a guy like Diego Lopes, and was able to counter-attack him off the back foot. It would be interesting to see how he's going to counter-attack or how he's going to attack a guy like Gene Silva. Whereas Gene Silva doesn't really move forward and throw punches like Diego Lopes. He likes to be low output on the back foot, catch you with a check hook and come over the top with the right hand. And he tries to, when you crash in, he tries to beat you in the positioning game and land the bigger shot. So I think that does bode well against Volk. Volk likes to crash in, but Volk does crash in quite educatedly. If you remember how Volk has got caught every single time he's got finished in his career, so against Islam Makhachev, against Ilia Topuria, or even against that one middleweight in his regional career, the thing is that Volk will be able to outland them a little bit. But where he got caught by those fighters was on the back foot. So it'll be interesting to see. On the front foot, he's usually quite educated with his attack. If you remember the Diego Lopes fight, there was only a couple of exchanges where he would crash in and actually get caught. He usually got the better of those exchanges. But the difference between Gene Silva and Diego Lopes is massive. I think Gene Silva is a lot faster than Diego Lopes. I think his counters are a lot more clean. So I really think that this would be a 50-50 fight, where in the build-up I'm switching my prediction constantly and just going with a gut feeling that I do not have. I think this would be such a difficult fight to predict. I think it's literally whoever turns up on the night and is able to perform at a higher level. I don't think that either of these guys have a glaring weakness that the other is able to poke holes in. So I think that this would be such an interesting fight, and it would probably be the hardest fight for Volk in the featherweight division. I don't see any of the bantamweights giving Volk any problems. I was going to put Merab on this list, but I actually think Merab would get finished by Volk just because of the size difference and the takedown defense of Volk. And the thing is that I think Gene Silva's the only one that poses a significant threat to Volk style-wise, just because he's got the power to shut you off. He's really fast, and we haven't really seen his peak yet. We haven't seen the best matchup and the best performance from Gene Silva yet. I really believe that. So it'll be interesting to re-look at this once Gene Silva's fought Diego Lopes. Maybe he gets smoked by Lopes and there's no difficult matchups for Volk. Hopefully that's the case, but I think that this will be a very difficult fight for both. A pull-up stumps there. They're the matches that I wanted to break down. If you enjoyed the video, as always, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.